Good evening, everybody. I'm Derek Rickey with Minnesota Hockey here, and we're going to get started with tonight's Association Leader Conference session on developing and mentoring coaches. First thing I want to do is thank everyone for joining us tonight. We may have a couple more join us along the way, but we're going to get rolling here. And before I introduce our panelists and speakers this evening, I want to touch base on a couple of key things. One of them being just an upcoming schedule. Hopefully many of you have seen our schedule on the Minnesota Hockey website. It is a 6-evening virtual conference that we have going, and we have 2 more sessions coming up. We're going to take a week off next week, with it being the first week of school. And then Tuesday, September 15th and the September 17th, we have 4 more sessions coming in, including a new one that we just added on arena development. So if you haven't seen those and you're interested, check out that link, minnesotahockey.org/leaders, and please feel free to pass it along to anyone else in your association who might be interested. I also want to take just a minute here to thank our corporate partners. The Association Leader Conference is an event that we typically do in person, and you know, it's a pretty big initiative for Minnesota Hockey, and it's something that we're basically able to do for association board members at no cost. And that's really because of the financial support and others that we get through our corporate partners. So these 8 businesses are financial supporters of our Association Leader Conference, as well as Minnesota Hockey as a whole. They also provide great services for youth hockey associations. So just ask that, you know, if you have an opportunity to support them back the way they support us, that would be greatly appreciated. It's definitely a win-win opportunity, as they do provide some fantastic services. For those that aren't familiar, Hockey Intelligence, that's a cognitive training software, and it's used by the NTDP. Very, very positive reaction within Minnesota, especially among high school coaches and their programs, and expanding within youth associations. TRIA, I think everyone's familiar with, as well as Sports Engine. Also want to touch on FlipGive, which is a new fundraising software that is recently signed on with Minnesota Hockey. Definitely something worth looking into. JLG Architects, they are pretty heavily involved in the ice arena development. They're going to be leading that session that I mentioned on September 17th. Viking Trophies is a local business here in Minnesota that is great for any trophies or awards you may need. Big Sporting Goods, I think everyone's familiar with. And then Rink Systems is our main provider of our hard divider program and that subsidy. So again, some great partners, and we hope that, you know, if you're not familiar with them, that you check them out and see if they can help your program. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I want to just introduce real quick our first guest, which is our Minnesota Coach-in-Chief, Christian Kelling. Christian, feel free to take it away.
Thanks, Derek. And I'm here tonight sponsored by Surly Brewing Company. So Derek, you can feel free to buy me some Surly's anytime you'd like. Thanks for having me, Derek. It's great to be here. I just want to go over a few updates from our coaching program. It's actually a really exciting time, and we've made really great use of the unfortunate situation of the pandemic we're facing right now. Before I get into the exciting stuff, just one update that everyone should be aware of is that we did take action, and at a national level, USA Hockey is offering a COVID temp card for this upcoming season. So just to explain that to everyone, because some people may or may not be familiar with the temp card process, we've had a temp card for many years. What a temp card allows us to do is it allows us to certify a coach to coach for the remainder of a season without taking a clinic. It doesn't apply to any of the other requirements like Safe Sport or the module or anything that can be done electronically or that has to be more specifically related to player safety. But in the past, those temp cards have gone through a process of approval from the district level, actually starting at the association level and then the district level. And then ultimately they come to me to make the final approval on those. And we've had criteria on those. We've made them pretty strict. We like to limit them because we want coaches in the classroom learning, because we strongly believe that those coaches that are in the classroom learning have a great impact on the players. And But there is a necessity for that temp card because we get in situations where teams lose coaches in the middle of the season and we need to add someone, or a coach may be facing an illness and not be able to get certified, or some sort of extenuating circumstance. The list can go on and on. So that's what a regular temp card does. It basically allows a coach to coach for one season without receiving their clinic certification. So the COVID temp card is very similar in that it allows a coach to coach for the season without receiving certification, but that's being done at the national level. And so coaches can apply for that. Everyone got the email. It's on the website as well. They can apply through the national office. There's no vetting system for that. It's just automatically approved. Originally, when we made that decision, a big motivation behind that was we were in the heat of the pandemic and we wanted to give coaches the ability that maybe didn't feel comfortable going to an in-person class, the ability to get that. And I don't know, as of now, they're still open. I don't know how long they will be open, but they are an option right now. So with that being said, the other thing we are doing that is the really exciting part is we've worked to translate our new curriculum, which is the first piece of the exciting information, is the new curriculum. And the second piece is we've worked to shift that into a virtual clinic format. So we've had a number of clinics around the country, levels 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s in a virtual format using Zoom. And we actually just had our first one that we hosted as a Minnesota staff, a pilot clinic here. We had that done just yesterday and Tuesday. We did it over 2 days, and we're going to actually do another pilot level 3 next week on Wednesday and Thursday. And then once we get those under our belt, we'll start posting many more throughout the state of Minnesota. One nice thing about the virtual clinic format is that coaches can attend any clinic. And actually, coaches have been able to attend any clinic across the country at any time since we began the coaching education program. So, even if it was in person, but now obviously in a virtual format, it makes it much easier for a coach to attend a clinic that is being hosted by any one of the 12 USA hockey districts, just if the time and date works out for them. So, we're really excited about that. We're really excited about the flexibility of a virtual clinic. We're excited that our reach to rural areas and cutting down travel time and just the convenience of coaches being able to choose a clinic that works for their schedule, the day or the time. If they want to do a clinic that's one session, that's seven hours, they can do that, or they can choose one that's over 2 days or over 3 days. We've done all three of those different options so far. So they can break them up into 2-hour chunks or 3.5-hour chunks if it's a 2-day clinic. So with that being said, that's been a really positive thing for our program, and a lot of people have worked really hard on that. The coaching chiefs throughout the country, we've met at least weekly since the pandemic began, and then our ADM staff, and obviously in Minnesota we have Guy Goslin, who's been amazing, but our ADM staff and the national office staff have been really active and really busy helping implement everything with the virtual clinics, from the curriculum down to implementation of the actual clinics. So that's been a positive thing, and I see that quite honestly, I don't think they're going to go away. Even post-pandemic, I don't know if I think there is a value in in-person clinics, and I think in-person clinics are better, but the virtual clinics are really close, but they have so much convenience that goes along with them. So I don't think they're going to go away, which is a good thing. I do hope that we do in-person clinics again in the future, but I can see us using a hybrid model where we do offer the virtual clinics as well to reach rural areas and just people that maybe that may be more convenient for them. With that being said, the only other thing I have is that right now we're operating under our new curriculum that we have been developing for a couple of years. Right, we're calling them Curriculum A and Curriculum B right now. So all the level 1 and 2 clinics are Curriculum A, and then the level 3s and 4s are Curriculum B. So this is new curriculum. So every coach, regardless of the level, it's going to be the first time getting this information. And then as coaches progress on to the next level, we will be introducing level 3 and level 4 curriculum. And at that point, the curriculum A will become the level 1 curriculum, and the curriculum B will become the level 2 curriculum. But I think one big shift in our mindset is that the curriculum in the past, and when I started, we had a set of curriculum, then we redid it, and then we redid it a second time. So this is our third redo in the 15 years I've been involved in the program. But many times in the past, the curriculum was looked at as a job that we did over the summer and redesigning and recreating our curriculum, and then it was done. I think with our mindset, and then also just with the technology we have at our hands, we are looking at our curriculum as living and breathing, and it's going to constantly change and constantly be improved as we continue to host clinics and see what's working really great and see what maybe needs to be refined a little bit. So so that's great right now. And just a little detail about the curriculum is the clinics are really hands-on. They're really interactive, and we've had great feedback about that from coaches. We're utilizing the Zoom platform to send coaches into breakout groups throughout the day. So they, if we have 50 coaches in the clinic, we have a breakout group. For example, there's a number of different ratios, but for example, if there's a breakout group with 5 coaches in it that all coach at U12 or 12U level, then they get the opportunity to really have a good discussion, and they'll have an assignment and be able to work on something within that group. So that's been really good and well received. And the curriculum is just really detailing right now, just really how to run a practice, how to teach, how to explain, how to demonstrate, just all these soft skills that coaches need to have, and things that we may think we're really good at, but there's just a whole nother level of learning when it comes to those things. And so I went through the curriculum last summer, actually spent 3 days out in Colorado Springs and then another 3 in Denver. And our training was very intense and very difficult, but it was also very eye-opening. And we worked closely with the U.S. Center for Excellence in Coaching. And we worked across sport platforms. So we worked with U.S. volleyball, lacrosse, all sorts of other governing bodies in our training, and also in developing our curriculum and kind of picking and choosing the best things from the other governing bodies and things that they do really well, and stealing the good stuff. And quite frankly, they probably benefited from stealing from us more than we benefited stealing from them. So they're all very complimentary of what USA Hockey is doing. And not to be boastful, but the other governing bodies really look to USA Hockey as the leader in coaching education. And that's something that I'm really proud of, and something that everyone involved in it should be really proud of. So that is my update. I'm gonna stick around to take questions. I think I guess you could submit the question now, but I also will stick around to the end, Eric.
Yeah, so we'll maybe just do one or two here real quick, Christian. So one came in via the chat. If a coach did Safe Sport last year, is that still valid for 2 years, or is it fully every year now for all of the coaches?
It's every year, right? I mean, that's gone into effect. I don't want you to fog my memory, because Safe Sports actually falls under legal, but I mean, it's obviously tied closely to coaching, but that is every year.
Yeah, that's definitely more of certification requirement from a roster standpoint, and less so from a coaching ed standpoint, right?
Let me add one more thing though, just because I know some of you may be involved in the registration or registrar process, and it's a question I've gotten a lot of. So typically temp cards don't show up on the coaching database when you look up a coach. They're just a paper license, paper proof. What we're actually doing with the COVID temp card is we're going into the database and just moving everyone's expiration date back a year. So a registrar will not be able to even tell if someone has a COVID temp card or not. And it should just automatically populate like they took their class. So they don't get a next level up, but if they have like say a level 1 and it expires in 2020, 12/31/2020, they'll just go in when someone gets that temp card and move it to 2021. Thanks, Dave. I knew you would know that for sure.
So one other question for you, Christian, that I know we get frequently is regarding the level 4s. So will there be virtual level 4s as well?
There will be this year. Yep, we're gonna do like 5 or 6 for Minnesota, and then the other districts are going to be doing them as well. So we basically did an analysis of just looking at the history of coaches that go from level 3 to level 4 and the rate of attrition that we have, and then I think we bumped it up by like 17% because I think that's kind of the number that we're looking that it's going to be down for registration this year nationally. So we basically use that to decide that to pick out the number we need to have. So we'll have like 5 or 6.
Awesome. And then looks like a question that's near and dear to your heart. What about the level 5 that was set for Duluth?
I think Jess is up in Two Harbors, if I'm not mistaken. So
that's correct.
It's near and dear to his heart too. And I like Jess because I don't know if he still does, but he used to wear a Jefferson hockey jacket around the rink up there in Two Harbors. And so how can you beat that? You got another Jaguar fan up here in Duluth. So the level 5 was actually postponed until next summer in Duluth. Visit Duluth has been awesome to work with, and the deck and Amsoil Arena, and they pushed everything back. We got everything pushed back till next summer, and we're going to do, we got all the same deals and everything in place, so that'll allow us to move forward and do it. So you burned the jacket. Fair weather fan, huh? So yeah, we're excited for the level 5 in Duluth, and that's going to be a great event. And by the time that rolls around, like, we may not have been together as coaches for a really long time. So I'm excited to see how that's going to all pan out.
Yeah, that'll be really good. So, all right. Well, thanks, Christian. We may have a few more come up for you here as we go along.
I'll be back, and I'm going to throw my email in the chat for anyone if they have follow-ups as well.
Awesome.
All right.
Next up, I want to introduce Matt Margano. Matt is the VP of Player and Coach Development at Osseo Maple Grove Hockey Association. So we're going to bring him on board a little bit just to share a little bit about what they're doing at OMG to develop their coaches. Matt?
Thanks, Derek. Just give me a second here while I upload the presentation. Oh. All right, Derek, can you see it?
Yeah, you're all good.
I'm gonna hide the. All right, so I'll just kind of go over what OMGHA does. Just to introduce myself, my name is Matt Margano, and I've been involved with Osseo Maple Grove over the last 12, 13 years or so since my kids have been involved, starting from back in the Mini-Mite days and progressing up, and now I'm in a leadership role within the organization, VP of skills, basically. So really in charge of managing the operations around the skills and coaching development. So for starters, we make sure that we have developed a skills structure team. It involves myself leading that team. We have a coaching director, Andy Hedlund. He's in charge of, selecting the coaches and being there for coaches, getting them through the CEP process and all the certifications that are needed. We also have a group of guys and girls that are our boys and girls level skills directors. They're really in charge of, we have a weekly skills, we have a preseason camp, and they're in charge of setting that up, including off-ice activities as well. So each level has a point person that the coaches can go to. We've also developed a goalie skills team as well, so that we provide resources for each team is assigned a goalie coach, right? So just a leadership team to give them direction and provide resources for them to use. So, yeah, I mentioned that first thing, right? And a lot of coaches, that we've found, is just anxiety of everything you have to do. And Christian can relate to this, obviously, is Andy Hedlund really does a good job leading our coaches on what do they have to get done, what training is available, what training is required. And, it just helps them get through that process and eliminates barriers for coaches to become coaches, right? A lot of coaches you do hear at times saying, I don't want to coach, there's too much registration, this and that. And so there's a list of things you got to do, and they're good things to do, right? I mean, so we make sure that the coaches get through that smoothly, work with the registrars, and make sure that everything they do is appropriate. And in addition to that, Andy's also in charge of selecting the coaches at each level. It's important that we select the right coaches, and they have defined roles as a head coach or as assistant coaches, and we make sure that they line up appropriately and they'll work well with each other. So taking a step back, right, is what are OMGHA's development priorities? And it starts with player development. We also want to provide resources in an organization with our board, and making sure that they have ice available and pucks and things so they can play the game. But third here is that coaching development. And I put a phrase in here. So behind every good association team and player, you must have a good coach. So we really value the coaching position. We think it's very important as part of our organization, and we put a lot of time and effort into it, so we make sure that we are successful. So with that being said, we have a coaching excellence, right? And we hold our coaches accountable to following the coaching excellence, and it follows the 5 C's. I think I stole it from Minnesota Hockey, right? But we make sure that our coaches are committed, right? And examples of being committed is that they use practice plans, that they're there for the kids on time, and that that they're just committed means that you're there and you're just accountable for the team, right? You're committed to the position, and it's a word that that all the coaches need to be around. Next is being character, right? And teaching kids just to be good, that they're not yelling at the refs, they're picking up the locker rooms. These are just examples that we present to the coaches to be this and to have that character, because at the end of the day we want to develop good people, right? And I think during the diversity and inclusion seminars, Wes Boland brought up a really good point, in that especially in today's climate, these kids look up to the coach and they listen to the coach, and that message has to be good, and they're responsible for presenting that character so it reflects on the kids, so the kids have good character. Next year, there's a survey that we say, and they ask these players, what's the number one important thing that you want from your coach, right? And you're gonna say, oh, a good power play, I want to be taught to be fast. And no, these players said they just want to be liked by their coach. That's the number one survey result, is they want to be liked by their coach. So we make sure that our coaches are caring and they show passion to their kids. Next year is captivating, that they can, leave a lasting impression on the players, that, the practices are fun and they play games, and that the players remember, who that coach was. So they're captivating. And last year is communication, right? And so, and it's not so much that they speak well, but they listen. And so we really try to present this to our coaches. And, you're not going to hit everyone, out of the park, but if you just give them examples around each attribute, I think you're going to be a better coach for doing that, right? So I think it's our job as a leadership team to present these, and obviously there's probably more things out there, but we like to simplify it and make sure that the coaches do know how they should act and make them accountable for acting this way. We have a coaching culture, OMGHA coaching culture, and what that means is, we got to have our coaches buy into this, right? It's an association culture. Like I said before, we value, or we empower our coaches. We don't, as a leadership team, tell our coaches, how they should manage the team, how they should run the lines. We empower them to do that, but we do ask that they buy into some of the culture that we want to present, and that starts with being a community, and that they value every player as the same, right? And so in the upper right, you can see a picture of our first our coach meeting last year, right? And there's a lot of people that care, obviously, and that's just get everyone on the same page and starting that alignment, right? We try to train using station-based practices and small area games it's a priority, and it's easier to coach if you manage it that way, right? You're not trying to manage, you break out that activity, and so the coaches are able to handle and be able to present the right material and present the right activity in the right environment for the kids to develop. And those are just pictures that you see there of our house league, right? And you can see there that they're outside in one picture, or we've got cross ice games in another, and then they got another tug of war, right? And those are very common activities in our association. And and the last one here is that this behavior needs to start at the house level. And so one thing that we do is that at each level we provide practice plans, and that level uses the same practice plan throughout that day, right? And so it helps coaches not have that anxiety of putting together a practice plan and how to do that. We have people in roles that know what we want and what we expect, and that the coaches kind of follow suit. We're open to input. So if someone has an idea, we definitely want to hear, or they can even raise their hand and they can put the practice plan together for the week. But really, we want to provide that for our coaches at the house level, especially so that, there's just consistency across the coaches, and that we follow what our coaching culture is all about. From there, we want to make sure we provide our coaches with tools. And there's a lot of tools here. And that's one thing that I'm a little fearful is that it might get overwhelming and people might step back that say, well, that's too much. And that's over, it's just, I can't handle that much. But we have got to a point where we do present and we do allow, or we do provide all these resources and tools for our coaches to use. And it's really around developing practice plans or just understanding the game better. And I just list out a number of them here that we have a hockey share account that all the coaches are members at, which has detailed drills and practice plans. You share it and other coaches can use it. Our OMGHA website has skill drill videos and practice plans as well. OMGHA also has a YouTube channel with skill drill library. We have our own Instagram. It's a skills video. It's a OMGHA hockey. And, we just ask that, if coaches, we try to remove those barriers on, where's the material? What can I use? Well, there's a lot out there, and that's the one takeaway. Like, that could be too much. But if you go through the house level and we provide it to them all, by the time you get to, the traveling rinks, then you're well equipped on what you want to do, and you know where to go, and you probably have the confidence to go out there and get there. Obviously, the USA Hockey and Minnesota Hockey and the ADM material is really good that people go out there and get material from. But there are other sites out there. The coaches site's a good one that we use, and we steal shamelessly, right? I mean, it's okay to steal drills and ideas from other people in the industry, so to speak. So we definitely promote that and say, go out there and find it. Hockey Canada's got a lot of good stuff. I don't think we have to be shameful for doing that. I mean, if it's good material and it really excites the kids and it creates that environment of compete and game-like, then that's what we want to go out there and do. Each week we provide a hockey habits communication. We do preach hockey habits, stuff like scanning the ice and no flybys. And we provide a weekly update to the coaches to use, and maybe as a theme part of their practice that they, can progress off of. but the hockey habits are things you want to see in a game, and you really want to end that with a small area game where kids are scanning to go retrieve pucks, or we're racing for pucks, or we're winning battles on boards. Those are all hockey habits that we're all aligned on. And a lot of teams have their top 10 hockey habits that we require the kids to know. And I think it just makes them a better hockey player, right? Huddle is a video resource that teams can, video their game. We do help some teams provide, financial resources for that, but teams do have to pick up the bill on that. It's not a lot, but I think kids like to use Huddle and see how they play. We really try to ask the coaches not to use it as a tool to coach, really, to be honest with you, maybe once or twice during the year, but really to have the kids use it as a tool to watch themselves and really understand the game on their own, right, and learn as themselves. Player review templates, we definitely provide that for coaches to have mid-year reviews with their players. We have a house handbook that has drills, the skills, but the games, do's and don'ts, that's kind of a fun one, right? We have games, and then the do's and don'ts, we don't want coaches to wear blue jeans. That's an ask. We do want coaches to close doors so that they don't, just the small things in the game. We ask assistant coaches to read the practice plans before they get to the rink. Just the do's and don'ts, and there's a list there that helps just define what is expected from the coaches. And then lastly here, I've defining the roles. And, it's important that the assistant coach to the dryland coordinator know what their roles are. And we try to provide them resources on, or just guidance on what's expected out of that, right? I mean, so a good example of the dryland coordinator, it doesn't necessarily have to be a coach that goes on the ice, but it can be a mom and then there's a dryland coordinator that they meet with the team before every practice. And it's just a new voice. But as a leadership team, we like to make sure that the head coach kind of defines the roles of what the expectation is. And then last slide here, just what is our coaching training? And this is kind of internal training opportunities besides the ones that Minnesota Hockey requires and offers. We start off with a kickoff meeting. We are doing monthly Zoom calls with our level directors. So, it's funny, you almost got to force that type of activity. Coaches don't want to reach out, but if you can set up a Zoom call, now that we're all confident using Zoom technology, that I think that conversation will happen. And our level directors have a lot of experience, right? And so these coaches might ask about a situation, how to deal with the kid, or what's a good way to have a game-like environment to work on this thing, and just starts conversation. So hopefully that that will help train the coaches and just see more opportunities. Coaches clinics, we definitely have coaches clinics in the house level to a point where we run a practice, right? It's not a clinic where I'm just standing there talking the whole time. We actually run a practice where the coaches are executing similar to what we do in the CEP classes. Goalie coaches meetings, right? We have an outside, we're using outside goalie training group. OMGHA is our new one. And they have routine calls with them. Like I said before, each team has a assigned goalie coach. So again, that's another opportunity for our coaches to be trained. Weekly skills clinics led by the skills team. So we do have weekly skills clinics with each team. And the coaches are involved in observing. And like I said, the skills team themselves have a lot of experience. That we don't have all the answers, but it's just a new set of eyes or a new set of voice that the coaches from the teams themselves can watch and participate, and that's part of the training. And then the one we're kind of moving into is this coach mentoring system. There's been some legacy that's moved along here with myself and like Curtis Janicki and Eric Kukkonen, and all our kids are getting into the older ranks, obviously, and now the house is there, right? And an example of this in YZETA, who's the guy that I forget, but whatever. The story was that this guy led YZETA for a long time, and you guys can help me after I'm done here to remind me who that is, and did really well. And he was the greatest thing for YZETA and led the association and development and everything. But then when he was gone, everyone was left there with thinking, well, where's this guy at, right? And so we are now at that point. And so we're making sure that we're having conversations on what what this legacy did and how we can empower the people in the house level, because that's really where our development starts, and a lot of the hockey passion starts is at the house level. And that's where we found a lot of our success as they got older, because we had such a strong house level. And so the coach mentoring program is really going to be focused around the house teams. So that's about it. So I think that is it, Derek. I will mute and then I'll pass it back to you. I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, say Matt, couple of questions just real quick that people have on. First off, could you clarify what house means for OMG? I think that word gets tossed around and not everyone knows what you're referring to.
Yeah, sorry about that. So our house program is U8 hockey, right? And so it's not, in-house where, we're used to back when we were playing, but it is pre-K through third grade. There's no traveling. We don't really play full ice games, but it's everyone before traveling hockey, anyone below squirts.
Awesome. Thanks. And then the other question that came in was regarding the player review template. One, could you talk a little bit more about that? And then secondly, would you be willing to share?
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's important to have that one-on-one time with the player. One, like I said before, to have that communication and to listen to them, but also, going through these before, and I don't remember who it was, but the guy who was the AD at the Gophers or for Minnesota, he presented at one of these for you at one time, and he talked about how important, getting that feedback is, and that was more on a professional level, obviously, and the coach to the kid is not at that level, but it's a matter of just having that, and maybe, that perception, and maybe you can get some feedback to make you a better coach, right? So that you can be there for the player, right? And I think that's what I value more out of those conversations versus, telling the player, you don't have an outside edge on your left foot. That's not the purpose of the mid-year reviews. The mid-year reviews is just to have that one-on-one time where these players in a locker room might not talk to you, right? Because they're in a room of other kids and you're just not going to hear what they have on their mind. And I find it very important that we do listen to the kids so that we're more effective coaches, and the template, it's, what's going well and what opportunities do you have, right? And you definitely have more what's going well on your list. And then, presenting, I think it's important to also present an opportunity for the kid to work on as well. But there are also other examples of numbering systems, that you could quantify it. That gets a little long, where I like to keep it more qualitative and having a conversation with the player.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. So you're going to stick around and we can do more questions at the end. But next up, I want to introduce Judd Staus from East Grand Forks. Judd holds a similar role as Matt for the Green Wave up there, in that he's heavily involved in both player and coach development. With that, I want to turn it over. Judd, feel free to take the lead.
Thanks, Derek. First and foremost, I want to thank you guys for having myself as a representative of East Grand Forks on here tonight. I'm going to probably take a little bit different approach than Matt. And Matt, your presentation was great, and I actually learned a lot. I think OMGHA has been doing this for quite some time as far as player development and kind of fine tuning all that. And we're just kind of getting into the process of shifting over to player development. And I'm going to kind of explain how we're doing it, why we're doing it, and where I think our coaches learn the most, and kind of how it all works. So in East Grand Forks, we've shifted, like I said, our focus from individual player development, and we want to focus on all the players, not just one player, and make sure that, we're looking at every single player, not leaving, like in school, they say no children left behind and no player left behind. And that's kind of our mentality right now. And I think some of you probably have heard about our squirt program. Basically what we're doing right now is we have our termites, our mites, and our squirts are basically all working together. So as a termite, you get into our program, and your station-based practices. As a mite, the same thing, and as a squirt, we're doing the same thing. So what I've found with our coach, with developing a coach, is repetition. Just like the players getting, whether it's their edge work, their shot, it's all repetition. And the same thing goes with the coaches. You know, one of the things that Matt brought up numerous times is coaches being comfortable. And when those coaches step on the ice, we rely on a lot of fathers, mothers, to come out and help out. And a lot of times they're not comfortable. So how do we make them comfortable? What can we do to help them out? And that happens over time, repetition. So we have our coaches that start off at the termite level, and they just grow with us along to the mites and the squirts. Some of the issues you may have with that are, does this coach like this, or does he like that this way or that way? Over time, they got to trust the process, right? And that's one of the things where, in East Grand Forks, we were trying to instill in the coaches, trust the process, trust what we're doing. We try to educate the coaches. They don't want to hear me talk all the time. So what we do often is try to send out material, post it on our website, post it, emails, whatever we can do to try to comfort our coaches and let them know that we are doing the right thing. We're doing things that, they're doing at Oslo Maple Grove, they're doing over in Finland, they're doing over in Sweden, they're doing over, the rest of the United States. But I think the biggest thing for us and the coaches is the repetition. As you see them grow from a termite, they get on the ice and they don't necessarily even know where to stand. As they grow into mites, they become more comfortable. As they get into the squirt level, now it's just like clockwork, right? They know exactly what we're doing. They know what's expected of them. They know, the first 5 minutes of practice, we're going to work on edge work with the players. The goalies are going to go down the other end and work on goalie stuff. And at that time, they're setting up their stations, getting ready for a station-based practice. And one of the other bigger things, or one of the biggest things, I think, with any organization, and probably the most important, is cooperation. And we are fortunate to work hand in hand with our high school coach, work hand in hand with obviously our hockey director and myself, and we all got to work as a team. If we don't work as a team and fight against each other, then ultimately our program is not going to succeed. So to be on the same page with not only our high school coach, but our obviously our hockey director, myself, and our hockey committee, all kind of leading the same, we're all want the same thing for our players. It certainly it helps out dramatically from termites all the way on through high school, because we're all ultimately working for the same goal, and that is not necessarily to develop a squirt player or a PB player, but ultimately our goal is to develop a high school player and hopefully beyond. So it takes a lot of trust, a lot of work, and as Matt mentioned before, the importance of a practice plan is second to none. I always say that you're only as good as your practice plan. And, we don't have anything, real fancy. Myself, I produce practice plans for our termites, our mites, our squirts, and then for development nights, I will do it as well for our peewees and bantams. And, like Matt was saying earlier too, a station-based practice is really not that hard to run. It can run very smoothly, but as long as you're prepared. And one thing that we stress to our coaches is being prepared, getting to the rink on time. And on time doesn't mean that, we want to be, if we have a 7 o'clock practice, that we show up at 7 o'clock. We like our coaches ready to go and on the bench when the Zamboni's out, so we can, get out on the ice, get prepared, get the stuff on that we need ready to go. And so that when that clock hits 7 o'clock, our coaches are ready to go. And that's one of the most important things I think with any coach, with any program is making sure your coaches are prepared. There's times where, even in our own program, that I see some coaches who are not necessarily, ready to go on the ice, and that's only hurting our kids, right? And it's a process that we're going through. Like I said, we're just kind of getting into this, shifting our focus over into player development, and you're going to have some pushback because like you probably heard it 100 times, but it's not the same as it was 30 years ago, and some people think that it still is. But changing ways and doing things differently and trying to stay ahead of the game certainly comes with a little bit of pushback. But if you stick to your process and you educate your coaches, like I said before, like I said, send out materials, and sooner or later they're gonna understand, and not only understand, but they're gonna see the improvement in the kids. And that's the best part of being a coach is obviously these kids being happy, but seeing the improvement. And I think over time, as this type of model keeps, I guess what I say is we keep pushing it up the ladder. This next year, we're moving into the Pee Wee level a little bit and having a development night with station-based practices. And it can be anywhere from 2 stations to 10 stations a night, depending on how we run the practice. But within those practices, obviously small area games are a huge part of it. And the coaches, they start to see it, the parents start to see it, and obviously the players start to see it when they see their game improve. Also within our system, and I think one of the things we've also focused on, not only about player development, is our goalies. It's so crucial to take care of your goalies, and that's probably something that we have neglected here. The last I don't know how many years, but we have found that I think the last 2-3 years now we've had a development night for the goalies. We got a goaltending coach hired. We have a goaltending night, as well as our goalie coach, who also coaches with the high school, but will come out and whether he watches games, he comes to practices and works with the goalies. During his off time with the high school, has off ice training sessions with the goalies. And I think it's going to pay dividends down the end when these kids get older. I just don't think that you can forget about the goalies, and it's important for every organization to make sure that they have some sort of system for the goalies, because without a goalie, I don't think that your programs can be successful. Just trying to look at a few other notes here. I will talk a little bit about our squirt program. I know it's, I'm sure some of you have seen it a little bit around Minnesota hockey or in the news a bit, but we shifted our squirt program last year to in-house, meaning we only play the first half of the season in-house against our own players. We don't have a very big program. I think we have 40 or so squirts last year. This year, we're going to have a little bit less, but along with that, we shifted our games to half ice, and keeping our kids, our ice touches, our puck touches, our hockey, I guess hockey moves or hockey plays, cut those all, or I shouldn't say cut them down, but shrunk the ice to increase all your plays and your shots, your saves, your edge work, all that kind of stuff to hopefully improve our development, as well as keep the kids in the game. It's important to keep the kids playing. We don't have a huge program, so like I said before, no player left behind is one of our biggest things that we want to make sure that we take care of every kid. And by doing the squirt program, again, you have to educate we had to educate. We're still educating, but it's a process. And, you know, last year was our first year. Moving into this year, hopefully with the way things, if they go well, you know, we will continue with that program as well. Trying to see if there's anything else here. I think I talked about our development night. Yeah, I mean, that's about all I got, Derek. So I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Judd. Really appreciate you joining tonight and sharing some of the things going on East Grand Forks. With that, I want to invite Matt and Christian back on here and just run through a few questions. And feel free, everyone, you know, if you have additional follow-ups for anyone in specific or just in general, feel free to send those in the chat or in the Q&A. One thing I wanted to ask all three of you about is both Judd and Matt, you shared the concept of providing practice plans for coaches. And I think that's kind of an interesting one. What sort of balance is there between making sure a coach and that age group has a practice plan versus giving coaches some independence to come up with their own? Is that something that you faced? And just talk a little bit about that, because I know personally as a coach, planning for practice is one of my favorite parts. So,
Derek, you broke up there. I couldn't hear you, so I can't answer that.
So I'll just quick rephrase or summarize. What sort of balance do you have in working with coaches who want to come up with their own practice plans?
Okay. Well, like I said, with our program, I work directly with the mites, termites, and our squirts. We all work together, all the coaches. So whether, you know, I'll get a text message or a video of, hey, we should try this today. Hey, we should try that today. But with our program and having, you know, lower numbers, we only have one mite group, one termite group, or we have two termite groups, and then we have one squirt group. So ultimately, all the coaches are on the ice when, you know, our mites are out or our squirts are out. So for planning for those practices, again, we take ideas of all the coaches, but there really only is one group to you know, look over. Whereas I think in like Maple Grove or bigger communities, obviously there's probably a little different approach to that.
Awesome. Matt, do you want to touch on that?
Yep, and I think there's a good balance. So yeah, just to talk about size, we've got, I guess, 4 levels on the boys and 3 levels on the girls, and at each level there's 6 to 8 teams, right? So there's a larger magnitude of those practice plans, you know, and at each level we assign a leader to direct the practice plan. So we have 6, 7, 8 different leaders that do collaborate with the coaches, but that's for the weekend practices. 2 times a week they're outdoors, right? So the coaches themselves are responsible for putting the practice plans together there. And on our, well, it is owned by Velocity now, we have a 3-on-3 sheet that they go once every other week that the coaches are also responsible for bringing their own practice plans to those two. So I guess I'd answer the question that we just have a balance of the two. And there's also at the start of the year, a meeting with the director of the level and all the coaches just to talk about that very topic. And like Jugg had mentioned, if anyone has any, you know, let's collaborate ideas, let's just be consistent on what all the kids are going to see, that it's the same material. Because the challenge, I think, based on the old system is what you had superstar coach, you know, this person, and then you had the coach that's just learning the game. And is that fair to the players to have that variety and presenting the information, right? So I think we would side to more to the coach with the experience and then have the other coaches learn.
Fantastic. Christian, do you want to hop in on that one at all, or did they kind of cover it?
Well, I mean, they covered it. The only things I would add is that, you know, I think a lot of coaches appreciate it as a resource. A lot of coaches are intimidated by with all that's changed, and look at that as a resource. And there's still a lot of room within a predetermined practice plan to put your own spin on it and to be yourself. And you know, how you communicate it, how you make adjustments, and how you time things are all different ways that you can adjust to make something fit the group you're with at the time and still work within the framework that the association's providing for you.
So, Judd, one question specific to the Squirt program, asking how are the travel teams selected after going the first half in-house?
Yeah, that's a good question. What we did last year, and what we'll probably do this year, assuming that we have a season. We think it's important. We have roughly 10 squirt coaches, and mostly dads, but we do have a squirt coach who is not a dad. We get to see these kids practice and play together, up until January 1st. I think this year we're going to push it back even a little bit more. So every coach has a voice, and the way we rated our players basically is what we did. So we did a 1 to 20. All the coaches did their little rating sheet, and we compiled the stats, and that's basically the way we chose a team. I think it's important because these coaches have put in their time, the first half of the year and more. So we need to hear their voice as well and listen to them. So that's basically how we chose our 1A team, and then our 2 B teams were equal B teams, and we divided them according to the results and tried to make those as even as possible.
Thanks, Judd. Good question for everyone to chime in on real quick, because I'm sure you've all faced this. If you have a coach within your program who kind of thinks that they know everything and doesn't necessarily fit in with the organizational philosophy, and you're trying to bring them along, but they kind of don't think that they need to learn anything, how do you approach that? What's a good way to try and help them see the light, so to speak? And why don't we start with Matt on that one?
All right. Right. I guess my first thought is to pull them in. Back to the presenting the practice plans. Yes, we want flexibility and opinions to be generated, but we feel very strongly on the practice structure and being station based. Again, it's come up multiple times. We go back 15, we'll say now 20 years ago. And, one coach had one side of the ice and the other coach had this side of the ice. And we just try to show off who knew more, right? And their new breakout or their new forecheck, right? And so we make that decision. We're confident that that's going to be our culture. And if one isn't, going to align with them, well, then they just won't be part of our coaching team. And that's just it's not an easy conversation, but it's just that we feel that part of our culture and our development is so important that is the message that we're going to send them. That's after having obviously good conversations to say this is what we're going to do. And I think it's such common sense that you don't find that person too often, right? So
Christian, Judd, either of you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, just get rid of them. No, I say that half joking, but half serious. With being involved in the coaching education program, most of the coaches that I come in contact with are great and want to learn and are awesome. But yeah, we certainly see ones that think they know everything and don't feel like they need to get better. And those are usually the ones that are really subpar, but they don't even have the conscious competence to understand that what they don't know. And I feel bad for the kids that have to play for those coaches. I mean, my strategy would be as a first step to try to bring them in and kind of give them some input. And in that process, you can educate them. And if that doesn't work, then I would go the other direction and put them on an island and try to minimize their impact.
Yeah, I think you guys have both made, very good points. And I think, it all boils down to cooperation. And if somebody or coach is not, I guess, adhering to our, like Matt says, our culture, and that's ultimately what we're trying to develop here in East Grand Forks too, is a culture and like I said before, a strong focus on player development. And it's not always easy, to be honest, because making this shift, just recently, in the last few years, you do have the coaches who think the other way, who think, they want to practice the breakout at 8 years old. And, that's just not the way to develop a hockey player these days. And if you have those coaches, number one, like we said before, you got to educate them. And that's what we try to do, first and foremost, is to educate, to show them, to, send them other articles, other videos, other resources to try to, get accustomed to why we're doing it and how we're doing it. Because ultimately, we're not going to change. We decided to go this direction. We think it's the best direction for our program. I think it's the best direction for any program. And, like Christian said, ultimately, if they're not going to be, or they don't want to be part of our culture and follow what we're doing, I think that if they've had enough warnings, we just got to maybe put them on an island, like you said.
All right. With that, I'll give one last chance for a question. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, both attendees and our panelists. So maybe time for one last question if anyone has it. Otherwise, we will wrap up for the evening. All right. Question coming in here specific to the second half of the squirt practices, Judd. Do you guys adjust how you do their practices?
Yeah, good question. What we do after we, I guess, move over to our so-called traveling teams, we still keep our in-house practices, in line. We do them not as much. We'll do them, I think, once or twice a week. And then the A or B teams will have their own practices in which they'll develop their own practice plans. Those head coaches will, or coaches will, whether they're practicing outdoor or, one on one half the ice, the other half the ice. But so after the teams are announced, they do practice probably on the average of once a week, is what we did last year. And it might change this year. We're learning too. And, we probably had a few mistakes last year and we'll adjust accordingly this year. But, like I say, you're never too good to keep learning. And we have to listen to the voices and adjust if we think it's the right thing to do. So we do still have the full, or the station-based practices with the whole group, but those other teams do get one practice a week approximately.
Awesome, thanks, Judd. I want to finish with one last question for the entire group, and then we're going to wrap it up. And that question is each of you have been involved in this coach development for quite a bit of time, and I know along the way you always learn things. So if you had to tell a younger version or a version of yourself that's just getting involved in coach development, what's one specific thing that you really wish you knew back then, because it's come in handy as you've perfected it? And with that, Christian, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I could probably talk for like an hour on this, but I'll just try to parse it down to a few comments. I mean, number one, I think just keep learning and just have an open mind as much as you can. The second thing is just to be patient. And I think I heard Judd use the term, the process, or maybe it was Matt, but it's something we talk about at UMD too. And it's just like, just be patient, know that you're doing the right things. And, if you are doing the right things, you'll get the results. And sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. It's just slow and steady. A big thing as a young coach, I started coaching when I was very young, and I definitely cared about winning too much. And don't get me wrong, I like to win. I still like to win. And at the level I work with now, I mean, winning is a very high priority. But when it comes to youth hockey, I think youth hockey, high school hockey, I mean, that's not the be all end all. And I think my perspective on that's changed a little bit as I've, worked at, every level pretty much from Pee Wee to Division I college. So those are the three main takeaways I would have.
Thanks, Christian. Judd, you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like Christian said, trust the process, be patient, right? This, as I say, is a journey. You start off in termites, and it's a long journey for these kids, for these coaches. Stuff doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time, and as a coach, just kind of like Christian said too, I'll never forget when I was probably my first or second year in and coaching termites, and I couldn't wait to get into the squirts and get into a full ice situation. And now I'm completely opposite. I want all the kids together. I want all the kids getting the same teaching. I want all the kids to develop. And you have to have an open mind. You have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to adjust. And if you don't, you're gonna have problems. Read, research, look at other organizations, look at other countries. Like Matt was saying, don't be afraid to steal ideas from other countries, other organizations, and we're kind of all in this together. And you really have to trust the process and be patient. Things will all work out as long as you let them. But if you're stubborn and you don't want to change, then things will be difficult.
Matt, you wanna share your thoughts on that? Oh, you're on mute, Matt.
Sorry about that. One personally is to pay more attention to the goalie position. I think playing the game as a skater, you gravitate more to that, and that we do have to be, and we don't want to landlock someone in as a goalie when they're might, obviously, but more of the goalie position, making sure that you set up the structure so that we present that opportunity for all the kids and make it a fun position. Because I think that is a challenge, and I'm sure it's just not at Osseo Maple Grove. Is the goalies, you need that as a coach. You need to be able to do that. But my advice and I was fortunate enough because I had kids come through it, but you see a lot of, like Judd was saying, to learn from others, right? And specifically to learn as a mic coach. I was fortunate enough to coach with Corey Leyland, and he still says to this very day that he's learning from other coaches and just learning, but also learning from a very young age and being able to interact with the kids and to grow as you develop as a coach, right? And so if you go right into traveling hockey or Bantam hockey, I think it's hard to relate to the kids versus if you do start as a mite coach, you can relate to players a lot more and be more sympathetic and more passionate to them. And so that would be and I was, like I said, I could have easily jumped into the traveling ranks being involved in hockey, but fortunately enough, my kids were mites and I was going to be a mite coach. I really find that I think that really benefited me as a coach in general, but also just learning from others around me and from others from other associations has made me a better coach as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Judd. Thanks, Christian. Really appreciate each of you joining tonight and your time, your expertise. Also want to say thanks again to everyone that tuned in. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you learned a few things, and best of luck as the season gets started here. Hope everyone has a great night, and good luck in 2021.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Yep.